We're talking about the place where everyone wants to live.
Plano,
Frisco,
Allen,
and McKinney.
This is Collin County Life
with Brent and Angie.
Welcome back to Collin County Life. We're glad you're back listening or watching us on our YouTube channel. And I just want to take a minute to say, if you're not already following us on YouTube, if you haven't subscribed, go to YouTube, search Collin County Life, click the subscribe button and the warning bell there. And every time we post a new episode, you'll get a notification that there's a new episode. But you can also follow us on Facebook at Collin County Life Podcast. So search Facebook. We'd love to interact with you there. We also post things throughout the week, updating you on things that are happening in Collin County. In this episode, we're obviously going to talk about some news happening in Collin County over the last week or two. We're going to talk about the weather coming up. We got some exciting news about the weather coming up next week. I'm going to introduce you to one of our Collin County heroes from years back, and Angie is going to talk about some things that you can do next weekend. Now it's time for some Collin County news. So this week, Angie, we've got a lot of good news and a little bad news. Unfortunately, we try to just talk about good news and non-controversial things. And you may be wondering about that. You may be talking about, why don't they talk about controversial things? Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of places you can go on the internet to talk about controversial things.
That is very, very true.
And one of the things we want to do is we want to be more uplifting, more community-minded. We want to bring people together, not separate them. So we're looking for things that we have in common, not the differences that we have. All right?
Yes.
So if you're interested in controversy, though, I want to remind you, you can always follow me on Facebook.
That is so true.
Where I tend to go off the hook, as they say. So good news about the COVID pandemic. You remember we have a pandemic.
Yes, I'm still reminded by that.
Yes. It started sometime last year, and 2020 was a disaster. And you still hear people talking about the pandemic. You still see people masked up as you go out from time to time. But the good news is there are only 400 cases left right now in Collin County.
Fabulous news.
Yeah. And so if you remember back to the beginning of February when we started this podcast, a YouTube channel, there were 4,000 cases.
Wow.
So now that's a reduction of 90% of the cases. So that is good news.
That is great news.
And so I'm kind of looking forward to maybe the end of talking about it. You know, or the end of people treating people in this really weird way. Seems uncomfortable.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
36% of the people in Collin County, according to the Collin County Health website, have been vaccinated.
Okay.
So I also think it's good news considering that only 36% of the people have been fully vaccinated, that we've seen such a reduction in cases.
Yeah.
It's good news.
What does that mean?
What do you mean?
Why is that?
Well, I think we're seeing two things. I think vaccination has something to do with it. And I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not an expert. But I also think that just viruses have this natural ebb and flow.
Right.
So we see this with flu virus and things like that.
Very true.
So again, that was for all of Collin County. Another story that relates to Collin County, but not directly, sort of indirectly. Have you heard that there is a new lake that has popped up in the state of Texas?
I have not, no.
No. So as I understand it, when I moved here, 28 years ago, I think it is now, someone once told me that there's not a lot of natural lakes in the state of Texas. Of course,
that is true.
Of course, we have a lot of rivers and streams, but most of the bodies of water, the large bodies of water, such as lakes, are man-made. So we have a new man-made lake that I think they just completed building the dam, if I'm not mistaken, in Fannin County, which is up northeast of McKinney.
Okay.
And that lake, and the reason why it's important to us here in Collin County is that lake will be in addition to Lake Lavon, and I think we may get some water from Texoma too. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I know it comes from Lavon. Yeah.
Yeah, it helps support our water usage here in Collin County. So with the growing population, it's good to know that
they're planning ahead.
they are planning ahead. All right, so here's an interesting story out of Princeton. You know, we don't talk a lot about Princeton on our channel, not because we don't like Princeton. Angie and I used to live in Princeton.
We did,
right?
Yes.
Before it was cool to live in Princeton, as you said, right?
Yep.
In fact, when we lived in Princeton, there was when I first moved to Princeton, there was one restaurant, the Dairy Queen. We don't really call it fast food. It was a long wait mostly. It was a different restaurant, but we were really excited. Do you remember when the McDonald's came?
I absolutely remember the McDonald's coming.
Yeah, so McDonald's is still there, but they've added a bunch of new restaurants, obviously, with growth that's happening up in the Princeton area. Mm-hmm. But there's one particular place that, and sorry to steal your thunder. I don't mean to steal your thunder because I know, Angie, you're the one that tells us places to go and things to do.
That's right.
But this interesting story popped up in the Dallas Morning News. There is a roadside food stand in Princeton called Old Rooster Creek Filipino/Asian American Barbecue.
Okay.
Now, at first I have to tell you, I didn't even know that was a food genre. Okay? and I'll have to try it out because I like barbecue, but I think it's pretty bold for you to come in with a different kind of barbecue than Texas barbecue, if you know what I mean.
Well, that's a really good point, especially because if you know anything about Hutchins barbecue, that their birthplace was Princeton.
Oh, that's right. So, yeah, you're stomping on some ground there. But anyway, what happened? So this place was started in 2017. So they've been kind of muddling along, and every Friday night, they stay up all night on Friday night, and they roast these pigs and get ready for Saturday, which they're only open on the weekend, Saturday, I guess, and Sunday.
Okay.
And so that's when they serve their food. And that was all fine and dandy until a gentleman by the name of Mikey Chin, who I'm not familiar with.
Nope.
But he has a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Everyone has a YouTube channel. If you don't have a YouTube channel, go get you one. Okay. Mikey Chin, I guess, is a food reviewer, food critic, sort of self-anointed, and he has a YouTube channel where he goes around to different restaurants.
Is he local?
Well, no, he was from the West Coast.
Okay.
And then recently, if I understand the story correctly, I went and watched his YouTube channel. He recently moved maybe from the Seattle area to Dallas.
Okay.
And so after arriving in Dallas, he was searching out Filipino food and found this place in Princeton. And so he went up there on a Saturday not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and he ate their food, did a review on it, loved it, spoke highly of it. Well, then the next week, this family shows up to their roadside stand, and there's people lined up down the street for their food. And they ran out like...
So they didn't roast enough pigs the night before.
They did not they did not know, I guess, the impact that this person reviewing. And that's what everyone... We need somebody to review the Collin County Live channel.
Well, maybe.
Somebody important. or maybe we could just have someone important on our channel,
right? Yeah,
that could help give us that boost.
Who's important that would like to be interviewed?
Yeah, right, exactly. We'd love to have you. We treat you well. Yes. I promise. But interesting story. I just I love to hear the story of people working hard and then they get that break.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
Yeah. I just want one of those breaks every now and then.
Yeah, we all do.
So everyone knows it was election week-ish. So yesterday was election day in Collin County. So there was elections going on in almost every city. Mm-hmm. But most importantly, 2 cities elected mayors. McKinney elected Mayor George Fuller for a second term. And then Plano elected John Munns as their new mayor.
Okay.
John Munns... You may recall this name from back in your day when you lived and grew up in Plano.
Right.
Because his dad used to be the mayor of Plano.
Okay. Yeah, the last name is familiar.
Yeah, and apparently he's still alive and people still call him Mayor Munns.
Okay.
And so now we have 2 Mayor Munns. The new John Munns, he used to serve on the school board in Plano. He was the school board president at one point in time. So this guy is doing the family business, so congratulations to him.
That's awesome.
Now, both mayors are faced with residents that aren't real happy with population density. So, and that includes the number of apartments. I know it's a big deal in McKinney. A lot of people are upset about that. Hopefully the council and the mayors will address those issues for the citizens. Because a lot of people, including myself, we chose where we live because we liked the way it was when we chose to move there.
Exactly.
And oftentimes we're apprehensive to see that type of change. Not that we don't want people to move to our city, but it's uncomfortable when, the small town atmosphere changes.
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
So one last story, good news story out of Plano. So apparently there was a beaver that was caught strolling down
Main Street
downtown Plano.
Really?
Yeah. So he was strolling down the street in the Arts District. We'll post a photo and a link out to the video. But again, this story was in the Dallas Morning News. The beaver got lost. I don't know where the beaver was supposed to be, but
apparently either did he.
Yeah, apparently, and he was so. Apparently, this video has him looking in shop windows and stuff. So I don't know if he's looking. It reminds me of that book, that children's book of "Are You My Mother?"
Yes.
So was he looking around for his mother? I don't know.
Oh, that's kind of sad.
Your Collin County weather forecast.
Now it's time for our weather here in Collin County this week, and more good news. I mean, I'm just full of good news today.
You are.
Let me just put it this way. This week's weather falls into the category of no excuses, right? So if you have a honey-do list, things that require
Or if you don't have a honey-do list, make one.
Make one, yeah. If you're not, so if you've been putting off something outside because the weather wasn't particularly nice, there's no reason to put it off any longer, because this week is going to be mostly all beautiful with like one exception. So tomorrow, we're going to hit a high of 90 degrees, followed by Monday night, a chance of storms, and that'll cool us off a little bit. So there's a 20% chance of storms coming in Monday night, but a 20% chance of storms in the spring is somewhere between 0 and 100, right? So it can go either way. But there's a chance, but it will cool things off because obviously there's a cold front coming through. And by the way, I'm not a meteorologist. Our son is a meteorologist.
Yes, he is.
But I didn't consult him. I go to the National Weather Service. So if you want to check me out on the weather forecast, you can check me out there. The rest of the week is going to be in the 70s, sunny days, all the way through next weekend. So it's a beautiful week. What we'd like to do on Collin County Life is introduce people to things that they may not know about in our county.
Right.
So maybe they didn't grow up here, maybe they weren't born here, and maybe they recently moved here. So we know there's people that are moving into Collin County every day. We know because people are knocking on the door asking if we want to sell our house. If it feels like being in one of those fast food restaurants where you're trying to eat real fast so the next person can come through. A lot of people moving in, right?
Yes.
But we want people to know a little bit about the history. We want people to appreciate the history of Collin County and how it came to be what it is today. One of those individuals is a man by the name of Audie Murphy. Have you ever heard that name before?
Yes, I don't know why, but it sounds familiar.
Seems like somebody you should know.
Seems like it.
One of the reasons why you may think you know that person is you may have seen a sign up in several places. I've seen it in a number of different places, marking places where Audie Murphy may have lived or spent time. Mm-hmm. Audie Murphy is a World War II hero from Collin County.
Okay.
And we're going to talk a little bit about him and where you can find an historical marker related to him. Audie Murphy was born in Hunt County, which is just east of Collin County. So that's where he was born, but his family, as you know, out there in the country, there's you move around, you could cross the county line. Right. So there's another town out there between Princeton and Greenville called Farmersville. We're familiar with Farmersville.
Right.
In fact, maybe a few years ago, I was kicked out of Farmersville during softball season.
You weren't kicked out of the town. You were just kicked out of the softball field.
Well, right, but it's not a big town.
Well,
so
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, unfortunate incident that happened there.
It was. Well, you were just standing up for your little girl.
But I don't. Yeah, we can talk about that story some other time.
Right.
But I can tell you, I was completely not guilty of the crime I was accused of. Anyway, Audie spent some time, lived as a young man, lived in Farmersville, and when World War II came about, that's where he was living, and he registered and enlisted in the military to go fight the war like many Americans did at the time. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing about Audie is that Audie got a lot of medals. So he was a war hero. He, I think it's like 21 different recognitions for his service in the war. And of course, he got the Medal of Honor. Audie Murphy is buried in Arlington Cemetery in Washington. So that's one good indicator that there was something special about this person.
Yes.
So he came back, and so there is a marker in Farmersville recognizing the day that he returned from the war, and there was a big celebration in Farmersville where thousands of people came to recognize Collin County's war hero, Audie Murphy.
Okay.
But his story didn't stop there. Talk about a full life, okay? So he went off, fought the war, was involved in many battles, received many medals, and then when he came back, he decided to take up acting and had an acting career where he starred in or played in 40 feature films.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like what?
You're not supposed to ask me questions like that unless we've talked about it before. But I have some notes here. How about this one? To Hell and Back. Did you remember that one from 1949 or 1955?
Yep. It's a little before my time.
Right. So a lot of these films were
Before my time.
before your time and most likely in black and white. Not taking away from his marvelous career. Now, another interesting thing about Audie Murphy is that he also suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder before we knew what it was. Mm-hmm. So now they know, looking back on his life and looking back at some of the treatments that he went through after the war. Now they're able to say that, he was one of the early people that suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, and it did affect his life.
Sure.
After the war,
right.
In many ways. In fact, one time he was actually arrested and accused of attempted murder because he shot at somebody. Yeah,
Isn't that still considered attempted murder?
Yes, but for whatever reason they dropped the charge. So, and it was a different time. I don't know. Unfortunately, Mr. Murphy ended up dying in a plane crash.
Oh.
Yeah, out in Virginia in a private plane crash late in his life. But he lived a full life. Like I said, he's a hero. Right. And if you want to learn more about him, you can obviously search online, but go visit his historical marker in Farmersville.
Okay.
Now it is time for Angie to share with us the things that she recommends that we do this week. She's always recommends things that I should do, but now she's going to recommend things that you should do.
Yes, I'm very good at telling people what to do, when they should do it.
Right. And where they should go.
Yes. I'm also very good at always wanting to do fun things.
That is true.
And not, things that aren't fun. So I do have several things.
Okay, good. I'm excited to hear about what I'll be doing next week.
That's right. And it's Mother's Day, so of course you will be doing them.
Can we talk a little bit about that, first of all?
Which part?
I've always been confused about Mother's Day because, unfortunately, both our mothers are gone.
That is correct.
They passed away several years ago. Mm-hmm. I thought Mother's Day was recognition for your mother. So in celebration of Mother's Day, I would do something for my mom. Okay?
Right.
My mother, unfortunately, your mother has passed away.
That is true.
Doesn't that let us off the Mother's Day hook?
It lets me off the Mother's Day hook. Mm-hmm. It doesn't let you off the Mother's Day hook.
See, that doesn't seem right to me. Because
and maybe
because why are our children not on the hook?
They're on the hook too.
Okay.
I would like to get a response from anyone that may be listening to this because this has been a 20-plus year discussion
That's
between the
correct.
two of us.
That is absolutely right.
So I feel like even though you and I did not have children together, our children were very young when we got married.
That's true.
Therefore, I feel like I mothered all of the children, and some of them were yours. So it's the recognition of the mother in your life, not your mother in your life.
But since they're all raised and gainfully employed, isn't it time for me to pass that baton to them and for them now to take up the mantle of Mother's Day?
No.
Because, I mean, when they were younger, obviously I had to be involved with Mother's Day because they wouldn't know the difference. But
Don't I still do motherly things for the children, all of them?
that is true. But what I'm saying is in the argument here, make sure everyone's clear on the argument, okay? The argument isn't that I don't appreciate you being a mom, okay? Or that you still mother our children in some way. The argument is that when they were younger, I had the responsibility of leading them through Mother's Day. But now that they are adults, okay, it's my opinion that they're 100% responsible for Mother's Day.
I agree. Yes. Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Case
But I
settled
think
then.
that you should still recognize me in some form or fashion.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay.
I will recognize you until the day I can't recognize you anymore.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Okay. Can we move on to the fun things that we're going to do now?
You brought it up.
Okay. I did. But I would like to see how people respond. If they respond on Angie's side or Brent's side.
Okay.
Okay. So in Frisco, and this is for tweens
Okay.
and young adults and anyone who enjoys gaming.
Okay.
Which I know nothing about.
That could include a lot of adults.
Well, that's true. That is true. I am going to just flat out say I know nothing about. I don't think I've ever played an Xbox game. So this is
yes,
for.
you did. You remember that dance game?
Okay. Oh yes, Dance Dance Revolution. I did do that, but I never held a little controller thing and did that business.
The dancing game, that was a workout.
It was. It was. But I think this is not the dancing game.
Okay.
This is because they have tournaments and competitions, which I guess you could do that with the dancing game. But I got there's lounge chairs, so you sit.
I won a dance competition one time. Did I ever tell you that?
No,
I did.
but we're getting off track.
I know, but I thought it was important to point that out.
That's interesting. Well, how old were you?
I was in 6th grade.
How many people were in the competition?
I don't remember. We were at a youth center, and it was Friday night, and there was a competition, and I won.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I know.
Interesting. Yes. Okay. Back to the place is called Play Live Nation. It's in Stonebriar Mall. So go and you can play your Xbox games there.
Okay.
Now, another thing that is only this weekend, this is my family and a good cause event that is happening in Frisco. It is the 9th annual Frisco Streets Gourmet and Truck and Music Festival.
Okay.
And Streets is STREATS.
Okay, so it involves eating.
It involves eating gourmet food truck food.
I gotcha.
And then there'll be live music. It's free admission, but it's at 4th and Elm Street. And it is only from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday only. And that's May 8th.
I think I saw somewhere where they're really hopeful that this kicks off sort of spring and summer for the Frisco downtown merchants.
Oh, well, maybe.
Because of COVID, right? So
Right, sure.
getting
Yeah.
back, muscle memory kind of thing is getting people back in the motion of going out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this apparently, so this is something that, again, it's the 9th annual, so they've been doing it for a while.
Right.
And it's also, it benefits the Frisco Family Services, but also the Boys and Girls Club for Collin County.
Okay.
So it's a great fundraiser.
Right.
So there's food, there's going to be beer, wine garden. That said tons, they used the word tons, of children's activities.
Great.
So it'll be a good place for a family to go and enjoy, hopefully, a nice sunny Saturday.
Right.
In McKinney, this is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Gotcha.
So 7th, 8th, and 9th is the Vintage Market Days, and that is at Myers Park.
Right.
I go to this is anytime they show up. I
Really?
love the Vintage Market Days.
So what's it like? By the way, I don't show up every time. So tell me what it's like.
That's because you don't say, oh, you should buy that. You should buy that. My friends say that to me.
Gotcha.
This is how it's described. It's described as vintage, repurposed, and handmade market.
Okay.
So it's booths that have all those different types of things. There is live music there, and it's always great music. They have food. They have a couple of food trucks. So yeah, it's fun. It's a great atmosphere, and I'm going to go.
This reminds me of last week, our garage sale that we had here.
Yes.
So that was one reason why we didn't have an episode. We were busy all last weekend. We had a garage sale, and I kind of felt like we were the Vintage Market Days. So when you get to a certain age, you have a lot of vintage stuff.
You do.
And
yes.
so I was not participating in the garage sale. And I just remember you kept coming into the house because people would show up and asking if we had anything. And you would come in and like rob it off of our shelves and go out there and sell it to somebody.
Yeah. Well, I've been accused of being a hoarder before. So possible that if you're looking for something, I've got it.
I got you.
You do need tickets to get into the Vintage Market Days. You can get them online or you can get them at the door. I just always get it at the door. So, however. Also in McKinney, and this sounds like something might be right up your alley. Kind of goes back to the vintage thing a little bit.
Gotcha.
At McKinney Performing Arts Center Community Theater.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which is in the old courthouse building down on the square. On the 7th and the 8th, from 8 until 10, they're going to have radio suspense theater live on stage.
Oh, that does sound interesting.
Yeah. So they're going to be doing 1936 thrillers like The Shadow and Lights Out. Mm-hmm. So they'll be performing this live on stage, and it will be just like, except for you're watching, but it'd be just like you're back in the old days when you sat and you listened to the stories on the radio, and they're even going to have the music that would go with it, as well as the ads from that era. And lastly, in Allen is going to be having their annual arts festival, which did not get to happen last year because of COVID. Mm-hmm. So they're excited that it's coming back. It's going to be at Waters Creek. It's hosted by the Allen Arts Alliance, and they're going to have 40 different local artisans. So in booths, they'll have live music, and it's going to be kicked off on Friday night, the 7th, at 4 o'clock by the Allen High School Jazz Band.
Awesome.
So that May 7th is 4 to 8. Saturday will be 10 to 8, and Sunday 12 to 6.
Awesome. Sunday is Mother's Day. So
No. Yes. Yes, it is. It's Mother's Day.
that is right. Yeah. So, thanks, Angie. One last thing. If anybody knows anything about this and can help me, this is a plea for help.
Oh, boy.
So, recently, I purchased a new computer.
Yes.
Okay, to help us. We need a more powerful computer to help us with video editing and whatnot. And so this last week, I also use it for business. And so this last week, mind you, I've gone years with a computer that had Windows Home Edition running on it and didn't need Windows Pro. But this last week, I realized I needed a feature that was only available on the Windows Pro version. So I decided to go through the process through Microsoft using their software and their website to purchase the Windows Pro upgrade and download it to my computer.
Yes.
Okay. So I did that process. And then when it went to activate the software, it said, can't activate the software because your license is non-genuine. Mind you, this was a license I got from Microsoft.
What is a license?
A license to use the software that basically that proves that you paid for it.
Oh.
Right. And so since I paid for it online and clicked the button, downloaded, installed it, I didn't control the licensing. I thought they would cover that part.
Right. Yeah.
So now back in the old days, when you ran into a problem like that, like you buy a car and something's wrong with you, you take it to the dealership and say, hey, there's something wrong with my car.
Right.
So Microsoft now, and mind you, I'm a Microsoft fan. I've been a Microsoft fan for years. There is no way to contact a human being, no easy way to contact a human being to help you with a situation like this. But I went through the process, and I finally got into a chat where they called me back.
Right.
And the guy called me back from the method that they recommended I used, and called me back and told me he couldn't help me with my problem. I had to contact somebody else. So I insisted that he transfer me to that someone else instead of going through the process again.
Right.
And after about 7 minutes, they just flat up hung up on me.
Yeah.
And so now I'm left with this problem where I'm running Windows on my computer, and it says there's a message down below on my screen that says activate your Windows, basically telling me you are a cheat. You are using unauthorized software, which bugs me. The computer's running, but it bugs me that it's not activated. So if you're out there and you're a wizard on Windows and can help me with that problem, I would sure like to hear from you.
Yeah, because I'm not a wizard and I can't help you.
Thanks again. We'll see you next time.